Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
Hearty welcome to JnanaMarga.in biology classes. I am Professor G.K Bhat. In our last class, we have studied the endocrine glands with reference to pituitary, then pineal gland, and thyroid gland. Now, we shall look into parathyroid gland. In us, 4 parathyroid glands are present, and these parathyroid glands are present on the back side of the thyroid gland. That means on the dorsal side of our body. They are present one pair each in the 2 lobes of the thyroid gland. Let us see that picture. The thyroid glands secrete the hormone called parathyroid hormone. Whenever we speak about the hormone, we should know the chemical nature of the hormone. Is it a peptide hormone? Is it a protein hormone? Is it a catecholamine? Is it a steroid hormone? All these we shall see at the end of the lecture. As per the parathyroid hormone, which is abbreviated as PTH, parathyroid hormone is a peptide hormone produced by the or secreted by the parathyroid glands. Look here. This is the diagram showing you the position of the parathyroid. It is present on the 2 lobes of the thyroid gland. This is one lobe, this is another lobe. You have already studied that they are connected to each other by isthmus. So on one lobe, you have 2 parathyroid glands. On another lobe, another 2 parathyroid glands. And these are present on the dorsal side of the thyroid gland. So, they are present, parathyroid glands are present on the back of the thyroid gland. On the back, that means this is our front. We have the thyroid on the back. That becomes the dorsal side. The secretion of PTH is regulated by the circulating levels of calcium ions. In our last class, we have seen that whenever calcium level is more in the blood, thyroid gland secretes calcitonin hormone, which brings down the calcium level in the blood. So, secretion of PTH is regulated by the circulating levels of calcium ions. Parathyroid hormone increases the calcium levels in the blood. If calcitonin or thyrocalcitonin brings down the calcium level in the blood, parathyroid hormone increases the calcium level in the blood. PTH acts on bones, that is the parathyroid hormone, acts on bones and stimulates the process of bone resorption, that is dissolution or demineralization. That means whenever there is a decrease in the calcium level in the blood, the calcium from the blood, from the bones comes out to the blood. Coming out of the calcium from the bones is nothing but bone resorption or bone dissolution or demineralization. Parathyroid hormone also stimulates reabsorption of calcium by the renal tubules and increases calcium absorption from the digested food. So by that, by the reabsorption of calcium by the renal tubule and by the absorption of calcium from the digested food, the calcium level comes up. We must remember that parathyroid hormone always is concerned with increasing the level of calcium in the blood. It is concerned with increasing the level of calcium in the blood. It is thus clear that parathyroid hormone is a hypercalcemic hormone. Hypercalcemic hormone, which is responsible for increasing the level of calcium in the blood. That is, it increases blood calcium levels. Along with the TCT, thyrocalcitonin, it is produced by the thyroid gland. Along with the TCT, parathyroid hormone plays a significant role in a calcium balance or calcium balance or calcium homeostasis in the body. Look here. This is what we have studied in our last class. Whenever normal calcium level in the blood, this is what is expected in the blood, homeostasis of calcium in the blood. Whenever there is an increase in the calcium level, if calcium level is too high, thyroid releases calcitonin. This calcitonin increases calcium deposition in bones, decrease calcium uptake in intestine, decrease calcium reabsorption from the urine, and thereby the calcium level fall. But the parathyroid hormone is playing in a different way. Whenever calcium level in the blood is too low, parathyroid gland produces a hormone that is releases a hormone called parathyroid hormone. This parathyroid hormone, what it does, it increases calcium release from the bone. That means it results in resorption of a bone resorption, demineralization. So it brings about demineralization or bone resorption or dissolution. So what it makes? It makes the calcium release from the bone to take place. Increase calcium uptake in the digestive system, in intestine. Increase calcium reabsorption from the urine. All these brings up the calcium level. Calcium will rise and comes to the normal level. So thyrocalcitonin and this parathyroid hormone works antagonistic to each other. So this is what he said. Along with the TCT, it plays a significant role in calcium balance in the body. If TCT, thyrocalcitonin, brings down the level of calcium in the blood, PTH increases the calcium level in the blood. That is why we say these two hormones work antagonistic to each other. Now, let us look into another gland, that is thymus. Thymus gland is a lobular structure located between lungs, behind sternum, on the ventral side of the aorta. This is the thymus gland. It is a lobular structure located between the lungs, behind the sternum, on the ventral side of the aorta. These are the aorta, what you see here, on the ventral side of the aorta. The thymus plays a major role in the development of the immune system. This gland secretes peptide hormone called thymosin. Thymus gland produces a hormone called thymosin. This is what thymus gland, situated in between the lungs and on the ventral side of the windpipe or trachea. Thymosin hormones play a major role in the differentiation of T lymphocyte, which provide cell-mediated immunity. You know, there are two types of immunity: cell-mediated immunity and antibody-mediated immunity, which we are going to study in our 12th standard syllabus. So, you have already heard that lymphocytes are of two types: T lymphocyte and B lymphocytes. T lymphocyte which mature in the thymus, therefore T lymphocytes, and B lymphocytes which mature in the bone marrow itself where they are produced. So thymocytes play a major role in the differentiation, that means in the maturation of T lymphocytes which provide cell-mediated immunity. Just to brief you, cell-mediated immunity is the one wherein a cell directly attacks another cell. It kills the other cell. It swallows the other cell. That is what is called cell-mediated immunity. In addition, thymocytes also promote production of antibodies to provide humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is another name for antibody-mediated immunity. As I just told you, there are two types of immunity. Cell-mediated immunity is by T lymphocyte. Antibody-mediated immunity, which is also called humoral immunity, is by B lymphocytes. B lymphocytes. Thymus is degenerated in old individuals, resulting in a decreased production of thymocytes. So, as one gets aged, thymus gland starts degenerating. This degeneration in the old individual results in a decreased production of thymosin. As a result, the immune responses of old persons become weak. You know, aged individuals, aged person always suffer from one or the other type of illness. They cannot drink water wherever they want. They cannot move that much easily. They cannot get drained under the rainy water. You know, if they are subjected to a little bit varied climatic condition, weather condition, they are going to suffer. And this is because the degeneration of the thymus gland as one is getting aged. So, in the aged people, you would come across the immune response to become weak. Now, let us look into another gland. This gland is the adrenal gland. Adrenal. The gland which is present attached to the kidney, anterior to the kidney, adrenal. Our body has a pair of adrenal glands, one at the anterior end of each kidney. The gland is composed of two types of tissues. The centrally located tissue is called adrenal medulla, and the peripheral one, which is situated outside, is called adrenal cortex. Let us see that. This is what the kidney we have, and attached to the anterior part of the kidney, we have the gland, and this gland is called adrenal gland. Adrenal gland. So there are two adrenal glands attached to the two kidneys, or attached to each of the kidneys, one to each of the kidneys. If you take this section of the adrenal gland, you see the structure like this. This is what you have the outer part of the adrenal gland called cortex. And this is what you have in the middle, that is called adrenal medulla. In the inner side, in the center, it is called adrenal medulla, and the peripheral one is called adrenal cortex. Right? At the center, adrenal medulla. And these adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla, they produce different hormones. The adrenal medulla secretes two hormones called adrenaline and noradrenaline. Adrenaline is otherwise called epinephrine, and noradrenaline is otherwise called norepinephrine. So there are two hormones produced by the adrenal medulla. One is adrenaline, and another one is the noradrenaline. Adrenaline is also called epinephrine, and noradrenaline is also called norepinephrine, and both these hormones are always together called catecholamines. Sometimes you'll be asked what are the examples for catecholamines. Catecholamines are the adrenaline and noradrenaline, or catecholamines are the hormones produced by the adrenal medulla. Adrenaline and noradrenaline are rapidly secreted in response to stress of any kind and during emergency situations, and are called emergency hormones or hormones of flight, fight, or fear. So these hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, are always called together by one word, that is three F's. They are hormones secreted under three conditions. When we are frightened, at that time you will see that they are secreted more. When we are fighting with another, at that time also they are produced more. And whenever we are running, whenever we are in a flight, at that time also they are produced more. So adrenaline and noradrenaline are rapidly secreted in response to stress of any kind and during emergency situation. Therefore, they are called emergency hormones or hormones of fight, flight, and fright. That is the fear. These hormones increase alertness, pupillary dilation, piloerection, and sweating, etc. Now, I hope you might have experienced the secretion of the hormone by some of the experiences you might have got. Now, let us think that just an imaginary, and I shall just tell you some imaginary situation, and I hope you can understand better. Let us think that you are alone at your home, and you are staying with your dad and mom, and you have some examination yesterday, and your parents wanted to attend some wedding reception at night. They might have gone to attend wedding reception, and they wanted to return, say, at night about 12 o'clock. They are expected to come back. They did not come at 12 o'clock. You are all alone and you are seriously studying for your examination. All of a sudden, it started lightning and thundering, unexpected thundering, heavy rains, and your parents could not return. You waited for another 1 hour like that. You are studying seriously. Let us see that all of a sudden the power went off and you don't have any other alternative source of the lighting. So power went off. You are all alone. And more than that, let us say that it is somewhat a new moon day, what you say, Amavasya day, pitch darkness on the outer side. And at that time, you started getting frightened because it was heavily raining, it was a thundering, and no electricity. And all of a sudden, you heard a loud thud sound, large sound. You heard a heavy thudding sound, thudding. All of a sudden, you get frightened because at about 2 o'clock, it is believed that all these devil forces move at that time, and it is Amavasya day, new moon day, no one is there, power went off, it is lightning and thundering, heavily raining, and you got frightened. What do you see at that time? You see that your all hairs start getting erected, what we call piloerection, and you could hear your heartbeat. You can hear the heartbeat of yours. Okay, you started shivering, sweating, and you don't know what has happened. Immediately, within no time, you heard meow, a cat cry. And at that time, you realized that, okay, it is your cat, pet cat, that has made some tin to fall down in the kitchen room. And at that time, because of the night and all, no one was there, it produced a very big sound. And that is what you got to frighten. You thought that someone might have come inside or some devil forces come inside. And the moment you heard cat cry, you could make out that it is a cat's business. Immediately, your heartbeat starts coming down. The hairs which got erected, they go back to their place, and you get a sigh of relief. And this is what is happening because of the two hormones. One is adrenaline, and later to bring down your heartbeat and all, noradrenaline comes into your rescue. So this is what the how the emergency hormone functions. Whenever we wanted to run fast, without our knowledge, the hormone gets produced and it makes us to do that much of speed. The moment, I hope you might have experienced it, how this emergency hormone works. The moment when you are sitting in the examination hall and let us say that you feel physics very tough, the bell is given, the examiners started just distributing the paper. At that time, you will be having high secretion of adrenaline to get you well prepared to face the paper. And after the paper is given, when you start reading these questions one by one, you feel that you have all the questions about which you know the answer very well. So you feel very happy. And at that time, the noradrenaline starts bringing back you to normal condition. Right? So in this way, these hormones increase alertness, pupillary dilation, piloerection, raising of hairs, sweating, etc. Both the hormones increase the heartbeat, the strength of heart contraction, and the rate of respiration. Of course, generally, adrenaline hormone, it prepares you to face the emergency situation, and noradrenaline hormone tries to bring back to your normal condition. But remember, adrenaline and noradrenaline, generally it is said that they are concerned with increasing the heartbeat. But to bring down the heartbeat, you definitely require the noradrenaline hormone to be produced. Right? Catecholamines also stimulate the breakdown of glycogen, resulting in an increased concentration of glucose in blood. So, catecholamines also stimulate breakdown of glycogen. Why? We can't always depend on whatever energy that is available immediately. Whatever energy that is required immediately, that is available, no doubt, through our food. But whenever we eat the food, extra energy which is not required immediately for immediate function, immediate work, they are stored in the form of glycogen. So under emergency situation, glycogen breaks down. Not only that, if the glycogen, breaking down of the glycogen is not providing you sufficient energy, then even the proteins and the lipids are also broken down. So this is what is called. They also stimulate breakdown of lipids, lipolysis, and breakdown of proteins, proteolysis. Both are taking place with the help of catecholamines. Now let us come to adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex can be divided into three layers called zona reticularis, that is the innermost layer, zona fasciculata, and the outermost layer is the zona glomerulosa. Zona glomerulosa, right? So, this is very important. Which one is the outermost? Which one is the middle one? Which is the innermost? You have to know very well, right? Glomerulosa, fasciculata, and reticularis. The adrenal cortex secretes many hormones, commonly called corticoids. Let us see which are all hormones are produced by adrenal cortex. The corticoids, which are involved, these cortex secreting hormones are called corticoids. The corticoids, which are involved in carbohydrate metabolism, are called glucocorticoids. Gluco refers to carbohydrate. The corticoids, which are involved in carbohydrate metabolism, are called glucocorticoids. In our body, cortisol is a main glucocorticoid. Easy to remember, which is a glucocorticoid? Cortisol. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid. Corticoids, which regulate the balance of water and electrolytes in our body, are called mineralocorticoids. Mineral, which is concerned with maintenance of electrolytes and the water. The corticoids, which regulate the balance of water and electrolytes in our body, are called mineralocorticoids. Aldosterone is the main mineralocorticoid. You can remember. So, glucocorticoid, cortisol, glucocorticoid. And mineralocorticoid example is aldosterone. Aldosterone, mineralo, although sounds somewhat the same. Aldosterone is the best example for mineralocorticoids in our body. Glucocorticoids stimulate gluconeogenesis, that is a new synthesis of glucose from that of the lipids and the proteins, lipolysis, breaking down of the lipids, proteolysis, breaking down of the proteins, and inhibit cellular uptake and utilization of amino acid. That is the main function of glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids stimulate. Glucocorticoids are concerned with the increasing the level of glucose. That is possible by breaking down of the lipids and proteins also. Gluconeogenesis, that is the new synthesis of glucose, lipolysis, proteolysis, and inhibit cellular uptake and utilization of amino acids. Cortisol is also involved in maintaining cardiovascular system as well as kidney function. Glucocorticoids, particularly cortisol, produces anti-inflammatory reactions and suppress the immune response. So, glucocorticoids, especially cortisol, produces anti-inflammatory reactions. The produces anti-inflammatory reactions. You must remember, inflammatory reaction, which also you are going to study in the 12th standard, inflammatory reactions, whatever you come across, these are the first responses of our immune system. Whenever you get hurt, whenever you get wounded, whatever it may be, or whenever we get attacked by these microbes, whatever response our body shows, first response that our immune system shows is known as inflammatory reaction. Cortisol produces anti-inflammatory reaction and suppress the immune response. Our whatever response is shown by immune system, it is suppressing. Cortisol stimulates the RBC production. This is another important point that you have to remember. Now, coming to the aldosterone, there is another one, mineralocorticoid, that's aldosterone. Aldosterone acts mainly at the renal tubules and stimulates the reabsorption of sodium and water and excretion of potassium and phosphate ions in the renal tubule. In the renal tubule, that too, especially in the distal connective tubule, and also sometimes in the proximal connective tubule. Selective secretion we encounter mostly in the distal connective tubule. And this selective secretion is because of the aldosterone. Aldosterone acts mainly at the renal tubule and stimulates the reabsorption of sodium and water and excretion of potassium and phosphate ions. Thus, aldosterone helps in the maintenance of electrolytes, body fluid volume, osmotic pressure, and blood pressure. Small amounts of androgenic steroids are also secreted by the adrenal cortex. This is another important function of the adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex not only produces corticoids, not only produces the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, small amount of androgenic steroid, the one which is responsible for the male characteristics, are also secreted by the adrenal cortex, which play a role in the growth of axial hair, that is the hair in the armpit, pubic hair surrounding the genital organs, and facial hair on the face, what you see, mustache and beard during puberty. And many times you might come across fair girls to have small hairs just above their lips and a little bit of small hairs, short hairs on the face. And these minute hairs, whatever you come across, it is because of the androgenic steroids produced in the female. Right? Now, if you look into the disorders related to adrenal cortex, it is not given in your NCERT book. You must know that mineralocorticoids and glucocorticoids hormones disorders are as follows. Mineralocorticoids and glucocorticoids are groups of hormones secreted by the cortex. Deficiency of this hormone, that is a hyposecretion. Hyposecretion of the adrenal cortex hormone results in Addison's disease. You just know about that. What is that? Addison's disease is due to hyposecretion of the mineralocorticoids and glucocorticoids. On the other hand, this is what Addison's disease. You need not know the symptoms and all. On the other hand, the hypersecretion of cortisol from adrenal cortex causes a disease called Cushing's syndrome or Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome. So remember, Addison's disease is due to hyposecretion of the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, and Cushing's syndrome is due to hypersecretion of the cortisol. Right? Now, let us look into another endocrine gland, that is pancreas. Pancreas is always called a dual gland. It is also called heterocrine gland. It is otherwise called composite gland, which acts as both exocrine, the gland with the duct, and endocrine, the gland without a duct. The endocrine pancreas consists of islets of Langerhans. There are about 1 to 2 million islets of Langerhans in a normal human pancreas, representing only 1 to 2% of the pancreatic tissue. The two main types of cells in the islets of Langerhans are called alpha cells and beta cells. We have two main types of cells in the pancreas, alpha and beta cells. The alpha cells secrete a hormone called glucagon, and beta cells secrete the hormone called insulin. Right? Many times at the time of examination, we start getting doubt whether alpha cells produce glucagon or beta cells produce glucagon. Remember, alpha, A, alpha. It sounds A. Alpha, glucagon. Glucagon, also there is a A in the spelling. So, alpha cells produce glucagon, beta cells produce or secrete insulin. Look here. This is the section of the pancreas, and whatever you see here, these are all called pancreatic acinar cells, and these pancreatic acinar cells are concerned with the secretion of the pancreatic enzymes. And this is what you have islets of Langerhans. In the islets of Langerhans, as you can make out here, there are alpha cells concerned with the secretion of glucagon, beta cells concerned with the secretion of the insulin. And also you come across another cell called a delta cell. And this delta cell is not mentioned in your NCERT book. Delta cell is concerned with the secretion of a somatostatin, and which is concerned with the overall functioning of the pancreas, overall functioning of the islets of Langerhans. Somatostatin. Okay. Now, this is what another picture showing you the pancreas, pancreatic acinar cells, and that of the islets of Langerhans. Coming to these hormones one by one, alpha cells produce glucagon. Glucagon is a peptide hormone, and it plays an important role in maintaining the normal blood glucose level. How? Let us say. Glucagon acts mainly on the liver cells. You know, liver cells are also called hepatocytes, and stimulates glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis means breakdown of glycogen. Glycogen is nothing but, stored glucose. In our body, whenever there is extra glucose, this glucose is first converted into glycogen and stored in the liver at the beginning. Later, it will be stored in the muscle. So, whenever our body finds there is a less of glucose in the blood, glycogenolysis takes place. Glucagon acts mainly on the liver cells and stimulates glycogenolysis, resulting in an increased blood sugar, hyperglycemia. Whenever glycogenolysis takes place, whenever the glycogen is broken down, glucose level increases in the blood. And it is called increased blood sugar level is called hyperglycemia or hyperglycemia. In addition, this hormone glucagon stimulates the process of gluconeogenesis. As I have told you, gluconeogenesis is a synthesis of glucose newly by the breaking down of the lipid and the protein. So, in addition, this hormone stimulates the process of gluconeogenesis, which also contributes to hyperglycemia. Glucagon reduces the cellular glucose uptake and utilization. Thus, glucagon is hyperglycemic hormone. Always ask a question. Which is hyperglycemic hormone? Which is hypoglycemic hormone? Hyperglycemic hormone is a hormone which increases the glucose level in the blood, or which is responsible for hyperglycemia. Glucagon is a hyperglycemic hormone. We have beta cells to produce insulin. Insulin is a peptide hormone which plays a major role in the regulation of glucose homeostasis. Insulin acts mainly on hepatocytes and adipocytes, cells of adipose tissue, and enhances cellular glucose uptake and utilization. Whenever our body glucose raises up, after the meal, the glucose level in the blood raises up. The moment the glucose level in the blood raises up, whatever the glucose that is required by the body cells, that will be taken by that body cells. And now, the insulin that gets produced, and this insulin, what it does, as a result of this secretion of insulin by the beta cells, there is a rapid movement of glucose from the blood to hepatocytes and adipocytes, resulting in a decrease of blood glucose level, and it is known as hyperglycemia. Whenever we eat the food, immediately, whenever the blood glucose level increases, immediately insulin comes into picture, and this insulin makes the glucose to be taken by the cells, body cells. Whatever extra is there, that makes it to get stored in the form of glycogen. That means the glucose level in the blood is brought down. So, insulin is concerned with the decreasing the blood glucose level. Therefore, it is called coming down the blood glucose level in the blood. Glucose level in the blood is known as hypoglycemia. Therefore, the insulin is called hypoglycemic factor. Insulin also stimulates conversion of glucose into glycogen, so glycogenesis in the target cell. So, you must know that conversion of glucose into glycogen is known as glycogenesis. Genesis means formation. Glycogenesis. The breaking down of the glycogen to give the glucose is known as glycogenolysis. So here, insulin also stimulates conversion of glucose to glycogen, glycogenesis in the target cell. The glucose homeostasis in blood is thus maintained jointly by the two insulin and glucagon. You must know, whenever blood glucose level increases, insulin gets produced. What it makes? It makes the blood glucose level to come down. Whenever blood glucose level is low, the glucagon is produced by the alpha cells, and this glucagon brings about the glycogenolysis and starts increasing the blood glucose level. So, prolonged hyperglycemia, that means increased level of glucose in blood, leads to a complex disorder called diabetes mellitus, which is associated with the loss of glucose through urine. In the individual who is suffering from diabetes mellitus, you know, diabetes is of two types, mainly type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is also known as juvenile diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is known as adult onset diabetes. So, prolonged hyperglycemia, that is increased level of glucose in the blood, leads to a complex disorder called diabetes mellitus, which is associated with the loss of glucose through urine and formation of harmful compounds known as ketone bodies. Now you may ask the question, why that ketone bodies are produced? The ketone bodies are produced because whenever the glucose is not metabolized, whenever it is passed through urine, glucose is not metabolized because insulin is not produced properly. So whenever glucose is not metabolized, at that time, in order to get the energy, lipids are used. When the lipids are metabolized to yield the energy, ketone bodies are produced, and these ketone bodies are also passed through the urine. Diabetic patients are successfully treated with the insulin therapy. That means by taking insulin tablet or by taking insulin injection, right? So this is what, if you just test this urine for the glucose, if at all it is a normal person without any diabetes, his urine, a few drops of urine, is put into what is known as a Benedict's solution. At that time, if this is the color, it is a Benedict's test. If this is the color, bluish color is the color of the Benedict solution. If there is no change in color, that means he is not a diabetic. On the other hand, if at all, now what we have to do? Take a test tube, take a little bit of urine in that. Take a little bit of a Benedict's solution in that. And to that, you have to put 1 or 2 drops or two to 3 drops of urine and just heat it. Once you heat it, if at all there is no change in color there, that means he is not diabetic. If the color changes to green, somewhat green of this, it is telling that there is a little bit of sugar. Slight sugar is there. And this is the sugar amount is more. And this is more than 2% of sugar. Pre-correct precipitate. And this, you can see here like this. Blue, no reducing sugar. Traceable sugar is there. Here you cannot see any sugar. Traceable sugar 0.5 to 1 gram percent. And this is 1 to 1.5. And this is around near to, and this is brick red precipitate indicates more than 2% of the sugar. That means whatever it may be, this indicates that the person is with a little bit of sugar in his urine. And these two indicate that yes, he is a diabetic. He has to go to doctor and get the blood also tested to confirm that he is a diabetic patient. I hope to confirm whether a person is a diabetic or not, the blood test is done, and in that, the blood is tested 2 times in the morning as one gets up immediately, early in the morning. It is also a preprandial test in the empty stomach. The blood has to be tested, and after taking the food, after 2 hours of taking the food, again it has to be tested. It is a preprandial test. If at all anyone, in anyone's blood, if at all it is less than 100 per 100 mg, 100 mg per 100 ml, then he is non-diabetic. If it is within 140 mg per 100 ml, after 2 hours of food, that is also non-diabetic. If at all it crosses 100 to 120, he is prone to diabetes. If at all preprandial, that means in the empty stomach. When one is in empty stomach, as soon as he gets up, if diabetes is tested, it is called preprandial, Preprondial. Preprandial, it should be always less than 180 to 100 range. If it is 100 to 120, he is prone to diabetes. If it is above 120, he is a diabetic patient, no doubt. And after the food, after 2 hours, he should be within 140. If it is above 140, again, he is likely to be diabetic. And this is how the blood test reveals with regard to the diabetes, right? So now let us go to the testes. A pair of testes is present in the scrotal sac. In the scrotal sac, outside the abdomen of male individual. Testes performs a dual function as a primary sex organ as well as an endocrine gland. Testis is composed of seminiferous tubules. All these details about the testis and ovary you are going to study in detail in the 12th standard syllabus. Primary sex organ as well as an endocrine gland. Testis is composed of seminiferous tubules and stromal or interstitial tissue. The leading cells or interstitial cells, which are present in the intertubular spaces, produce a group of hormone called androgen, mainly testosterone. Look here, this is what you have, the section of the seminiferous tubule, and these are all the cells what you have inside the testes, and you can see this is the section of the testes. These are all called seminiferous tubule, and what you have here, and here, these are all interstitial cells, interstitial tissue. In this you have the leading cell, which is concerned with the production of the hormone, male hormone, testosterone. This is interstitial tissue in between the seminiferous tubule, and here you come across a leading cell. And the leading cells present in between the seminiferous tubules of the testes secrete the hormone that is testosterone, right? Androgens, that is the hormone produced by the testes, regulate the development, maturation, and functions of male accessory sex organs like epididymis. This is what I have the epididymis. Then vas deferens, you do come across the seminal vesicles, and you do have the prostate gland, urethra, etc. All these are maintained by androgen, right? There is the male hormone. These hormones stimulate the muscular growth, growth of a facial and axillary hair. Facial hair is mustache and beard. Axillary hair, aggressiveness, low pitch of voice in case of males, right? These are the primary sex characteristics and secondary sexual characteristics. Primary sex characteristics are always the reproductive organs, especially gonads, testes in case of the male and ovaries in case of the female. All other structures, whatever you see, they are all called secondary sex characteristics, especially body hairs, changing of the voice, breast development, etc. etc. Androgens play a major stimulator role in the process of spermatogenesis, formation of the sperms, right? Androgens act on the central nervous system and influence the male sexual behavior, libido, that is the desire for sexual activity. And these hormones produce anabolic, that is synthetic effects on protein and carbohydrate metabolism also. Now let us look into ovary. Females have a pair of ovaries located in the abdomen. You have the pair of ovaries located in lower abdomen, what we say pelvic region. Ovary is the primary female sex organ. Testis is the primary male sex organ, which produces one ovum during each menstrual cycle. In addition, ovary also produces two groups of steroid hormones called estrogen and progesterone. You must know, male produces only one hormone, testosterone. In female, you see that ovary produces two hormones. One is estrogen and another is progesterone. We are going to study more about that later. Ovary is composed of ovarian follicles. What you see here, these are all ovarian follicles. And stromal tissue. This is the stromal tissue in between. The estrogen is synthesized and secreted mainly by the growing ovarian follicles. These are all what you have, the growing follicles, ovarian follicles. And they secrete the estrogen. After ovulation, this is what ovulation, that is the rupturing of the Graafian follicle and the release of the ovum. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle is converted to a structure called corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum secretes hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is always called the pregnancy hormone. Estrogen produces wide-ranging actions such as stimulation of growth and activities of female secondary sex organs, development of growing ovarian follicles, appearance of female secondary sex characters like high-pitched voice, mammary gland development, etc. Again, all these you are going to study in detail in the 12th standard. So this already I have shown you. And this is what the menstrual cycle, right? And hormones are concerned with these. Estrogen also regulates female sexual behavior. Progesterone supports pregnancy. I said progesterone is a pregnancy hormone. Progesterone also acts on the mammary glands and stimulates the formation of alveoli and milk secretion. Now let us look into hormones of heart, kidney, and gastrointestinal tract. You know about the endocrine glands, and now you have seen their hormones also. However, as mentioned earlier, hormones are also secreted by some tissues which are not endocrine glands. Which are they? The atrial wall of our heart secretes a very important peptide hormone called atrial natriuretic factor, which you have heard when we are studying about the excretory chapter. Atrial natriuretic factor, which decreases blood pressure. You must know, atrial natriuretic factor is also called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP. When blood pressure is increased, ANP is secreted, which causes a dilation of blood vessel, and thereby it reduces the blood pressure. The juxtaglomerular cells of kidney produce a peptide hormone called erythropoietin, which stimulates erythropoiesis. So, kidney also produces a hormone. and this hormone is called erythropoietin. You have already heard about renin. Along with that, you see that juxtaglomeralar cells of the kidney produce a peptide hormone called erythropoietin, which stimulates erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis is nothing but formation of the red blood cells. Endocrine cells present in different parts of the gastrointestinal tract, especially the intestine, pancreas part, secrete four major peptide hormones, namely gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin, and gastric inhibitory peptide. All these hormones you should remember very well, and they have their own role to play in the process of nutrition. Gastrin is acts on the gastric gland and stimulates the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. Remember, it is present in it is a gastrointestinal hormone. These are all gastrointestinal hormones. Gastrointestinal hormones are produced by gastrointestinal tract. Gastro refers to stomach, intestine refers to intestine. So, gastrin acts on the gastric gland and stimulates the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. Secretin acts on the exocrine pancreas and stimulates secretion of water and bicarbonate ions. Remember, they have major role to neutralize the acidic condition of the food that is coming out from the stomach. You have heard about the chyme. The CCK acts on both pancreas and gallbladder. Cholecystokinin acts on both pancreas and gallbladder and stimulates the secretion of pancreatic enzymes from the pancreas and bile juice from the gallbladder. CCK. And GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, inhibits gastric secretion and motility. Gastric secretion and motility. Once sufficient gastric hormone is produced, once the digestion got over in the stomach, then there is no more production of this gastrin. So gastric peptide inhibits gastric secretion. So there's no more the need of the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen, and also it inhibits the motility, movement of contractive movement of that of the stomach. Several other non-endocrine tissues secrete hormones called growth factor. These factors are essential for the normal growth of tissues and their repairing and regeneration. Now let us look into mechanism of hormone action. There are two types of hormone action. The hormone. Now you may ask how this hormone helps in the body function. You must know hormones always once they come to the target gland or target tissue and make the tissue function. That's all. The hormone either enters into the cell or sometimes this hormone reaches the cell and these hormones are received by the receptors of that particular target organ, and these receptors are passed to the inner side into cytoplasm to another messenger. Sometimes some of the hormones are in a position to cross the plasma membrane, enter into the cytoplasm, enter into the nucleus, and make the chromosome, make the DNA to undergo replication and to start synthesizing a particular protein. Okay. So hormones produce their effects on target tissues by binding to a specific protein called hormone receptor located in the target tissues only. So there are specific hormone receptors and that receptors only can receive that hormone and not else. Now let us see that. You know, the thyroid stimulating hormone is also released into the blood and FSH is also released into the blood and LH is also released into the blood. Now you may get it doubt. Is it not that FSH goes to the thyroid and does something? No. Whenever FSH is brought to the thyroid gland region, thyroid gland never bothers about that because the receptors present in the thyroid gland, they never identify that. So they will not be received. On the other hand, when the thyroid stimulating hormone comes to the thyroid gland, the receptors in the thyroid stimulating gland, they receive it. They respond to that. So only the gonads, testes and ovary, the receptors situated on the testes and the ovary, they respond to what these hormones, especially LH and FSH, they come. That will be identified by the receptors present in the testes and ovary and none in other organ. Hormone receptors are present on the cell membrane of the target cells are called membrane-bound receptors. So there are two types of receptors. One, membrane-bound receptors which are present on the plasma membrane. And the receptors present inside the target cell are called intracellular receptor, mostly nuclear receptor present in the nucleus. So there are two types of receptors. One is a membrane-bound receptor, and another one is the receptor present inside the cell called intracellular receptor, mainly nuclear receptor. Now let us see them. So, binding of a hormone to its receptor leads to the formation of what is called hormone receptor complex. Hormone receptor complex. It is a binding between the receptor and the hormone. Each receptor is a specific. That is what I said. Each receptor is specific to one hormone only. Now, if the testis has to receive this LH, the testis responds to LH only. Testis, receptors present in the testis, they never bother about other hormone, whatever is brought in the blood. TSH, no, they never bother about that. ACTH, no, they never respond to that. So each receptor is specific, each receptor is specific to one hormone only, and hence the receptors are specific. Hormone receptor complex formation leads to certain biochemical changes in the target tissues. Target tissue metabolism and hence physiological functions are regulated by hormones. Let us study that. Look here. This is the diagram showing you where the receptor for this particular hormone, FSH, it is present in the plasma membrane. The moment the hormone FSH comes through the blood, this receptor, whatever that receptor is there, it is nothing but a protein. It identifies this hormone and it receives, because this FSH is concerned with this receptor. So receptor identifies, oh, it is my that thing. So it will enable the FSH to come and sit here. This, most of the hormones are also proteins. So these come and sit here. So once these receptors receive this FSH, what it does, it, of course, in this particular case, it passes it to the another receptor, another that is called second messenger. It passes this to second messenger, which is cyclic AMP that calcium. Then it brings about whatever biochemical process is required. It initiates that biochemical process here, response. And as a result of this, physiological response is seen. So if at all is concerned with the ovarian growth, what is required for the ovarian growth, that chemicals are produced. And the moment that chemicals produced, the growth of the ovary takes place. This is how the function, hormones function. Either by stimulating the biochemical process response, or if at all it is not, not having that protein hormone, or if it is not membrane-bound hormone, if it is a nuclear hormone, it comes to the nucleus and makes inside the nucleus the replication to take place, and the replication results in formation mRNA. mRNA comes to cytoplasm and makes the relevant protein to get produced. Right? So on the basis of their chemical nature, hormones can be divided into groups, that peptide hormone, polypeptide hormone, protein hormone, etc. Remember, peptide, polypeptide, protein. All are proteins only. Peptide, polypeptide, and the smaller units of the protein. And remember, all hormones produced by the anterior pituitary. By the pituitary, as such, not only anterior, by the pituitary, they are all protein hormones. All pituitary hormones, 7 hormones are there. They are all pituitary hormones. Hypothalamic hormones, anti-pituitary, and hypothalamic hormones are that oxytocin and vasopressin. They are also protein hormones. Insulin and glucagon, pancreas, they are also. So whatever is produced by pituitary, pancreas, pancreas, hypothalamus, these are all protein hormones. Then whatever is produced by the adrenal cortex and gonads, they are steroids. Cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, progesterone. And thyroid hormones are iodothyronines and amino acid derivatives, that is epinephrine, norepinephrine, that is catecholamines. They are amino acid derivatives. So this is what you have, the different groups of hormones. Very important, you must remember. Now, hormones which interact with the membrane-bound receptors normally do not enter the target cell. They are membrane-bound receptors. So membrane-bound receptors allow the hormone to come to the membrane only, plasma membrane only. After that, they never allow it to go inside. Hormones which interact with the membrane-bound receptors normally do not enter the target cell, but they generate second messenger. Which are the second messenger? Cyclic AMP, IP3, CA, etc., which in turn regulate the cellular metabolism. Hormones which interact with the intracellular receptor, steroid hormones, iodothyronine, etc., mostly regulate gene expression or chromosome function by the interaction of hormone receptor complex with the genome. Gene expression means production of relevant protein. You know, proliferatory protein means this requires hormonal reaction. So these intracellular receptors or intracellular hormones which interact with the intracellular receptors directly enter the cell membrane, come to the cytoplasm, enter the nuclear membrane, go to the inside nucleus and makes the DNA to replicate. And this DNA replication results in the DNA to transcribe, and this transcription results in the production of mRNA, and mRNA comes out, and yeah, this mRNA, it starts initiating translation, and thereby relevant protein is produced, and this production of the relevant protein is also a result of the hormonal action. So, hormones which interact with intracellular receptors mostly regulate gene expression or chromosome function by the interaction of hormone receptor complex with the genome. Cumulative biochemical actions result in physiological and developmental effects. Look here, this already you have seen. These are membrane-bound receptors. So, these are the steroid hormones. Steroid hormones, FSH is a protein hormone. Protein hormone, not steroid, protein hormones, they cannot enter. They have to remain here and they have to go only up to the plasma membrane. And then they have to be received by the receptor. And receptors pass on to inner side to another messenger, second messenger, and then it initiates biochemical response, which brings about a physiological changes, ovarian growth. Now, this already I have mentioned about that. Now let us see that. Look here. This is what happens with regard to steroid hormone. Yeah, steroid hormones like estrogen or testosterone, like that, they can pass through the plasma membrane. They have entered the cytoplasm. They have passed through to the nuclear membrane. They have come inside, and this has resulted in what is known as, I have told you, transcription and translation, and later they come out and initiate the protein synthesis. That is what you observe in hormones which are which have intracellular receptors, right? So this is what you should know. Actually, I have told you about this. So classification hormones according to chemical nature: protein hormones, hormones for anti-pituitary, except ACTH. Except ACTH, that you have to remember. Insulin, parathyroid hormone, all these are protein hormones. Parathyroid hormones also, insulin. Peptide hormone, which are ACTH, is a peptide hormone. Protein hormone, of course, if at all you say that in general, it is a peptide, no doubt, peptide is a part of protein. Calcitonin, produced by thyroid, glucagon, vasopressin, oxytocin, hormones of hypothalamus. These are all small hormones, therefore peptides. These are a little bit big hormones, protein, antipituitary, ACTH, insulin, hormones for antipituitary. That is 6 hormones, 7 hormones, insulin, parathyroid hormone. So these are all peptide hormones, right? Vasopressin, oxytocin, peptide hormones, derivatives of amino acids, catecholamines, thyroxine, there's the thyroid hormones, derivatives of amino acid, and these are the steroid hormones. As you know, these steroid hormones are sex hormones, and hormones produced by the cortex, right? And these are the, of course, this is not the annual syllabus. So that's all about this class.